let's get started tonight. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I'd like to thank Terri Cravens for being with us tonight. Terri, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
We are just going to really connect with families today and parents, and just kind of discuss where we're at. We really want this to be kind of an informal conversation and just discussion about, how things are going. We know that there's a lot of changes in our lives, and we're all dealing with new schedules, new responsibilities, and, new interactions with our kids, which is really, ultimately building our relationships and deepening our relationships. And so during that process, we're having to deal with more emotions and more of the mental side of parenthood as we go through that longer period of time with our kids. I was thinking the other day that parents on average probably spent 2 to 4 hours with their kids every day. Now they spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with their kids. And that's a game changer, so
Right.
there's more time for the emotions. There's more time for the mental stuff. And so Terri's, got tons of experience in dealing with individuals, families, and kids on the emotional and psychological and mental stuff to help them, get in touch with that and, live a better life. So again, Terri, thanks so much for joining us. Guests, thank you for joining us. In dealing with families and having conversations with your clients over the last, 30 days, what's been some consistent themes that you've had to address and how are people moving through this situation with their families?
That's a great question because there are so many different reactions and responses. I would say that one of the greatest things that are coming up, especially for college students, is fear. They're trying their best to hang on. They're trying their best to show their best face, right? Put their best foot forward. But really what they're experiencing is a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety because we're in that place of the unknown, and that's difficult for most of us. So when you're in that space, let's say that you're the student, right? Or the child of the parents, that's when communication is so important, is to be able to sit down and communicate about these things and to create a safe place to do that so that in your communication, during your communication, you feel safe to ask whatever questions you have to ask or share whatever you have to share. Because also the parents feel lost at times because they don't know exactly how to reach their child. They don't know what questions to ask. So communication at this time is extremely important.
Yeah, I could see where, and even in my own experience, I'm having a lot of different emotions and a lot of different thoughts, and I'm just sort of kind of in a wave of all of that. And, it's not all positive, there's definitely fear, there's not knowing what's going to happen. So there's that uncertainty piece. And, just being aware of that myself and either journaling or talking with a friend has really been so helpful to
Right.
move through that emotion instead of stay stuck in it. And I think that's one of the things that you do, right? Is you help people move through those difficulties.
Exactly. Exactly. And I do it a lot, as you know, by asking questions and then listening to how the other person is responding without thinking of how I'm going to respond back. So that comes back to being able to listen with an empty mind. Because especially when it's parent-child, we have a tendency to want to be sure that our child is getting the best experience that they can receive. And so right away, what we want to do is we want to share more rather than to listen more.
Yeah, I feel that that's true for myself. I'm wanting to have the answers, and
Right.
I'm wanting to know the way. And it's like the more I go, I don't know yet. I need to just sit with the information another day. I need to see what happens next before I know, before I make that decision. I feel more confident, and um, I'm able to see better. And
Right.
everything I just described is really just being a better listener and not trying to have the answer, for
Exactly.
myself, for the people that I'm around.
Exactly. I was just going to say that because we have to learn to listen to ourselves as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Without judging it.
so, in your experience, when you ask a kid a question and they take a while to respond
Mhm.
because they're either not thinking, or they're not thinking about what you want them to think about, or they just don't know the answer. How do you give them that space to be able to formulate an answer?
Okay.
And you know what I mean?
Yes. I have found that not usually, but always in my experience, that when they don't give a response, when they're sitting there quietly, there's a lot going on internally. And so I'll sit there and wait and give them a certain amount of time. And especially if you're there one on one, you can see their facial expressions, right? And a parent usually knows their child pretty well. So they can pretty well sense what's happening. But you don't want to tell them what you think. So you ask, so what are you experiencing right now? Right? Or what are you feeling right now? Well, I don't know. Well, what does that feel like? Well, I'm frustrated. Okay. So what are you frustrated about? Well, I'm not sure. Okay. How does that feel? Is that, you just keep asking. It
Right.
all comes down to the same subject, communication, right? And to ask them enough questions so that you see clearly what their needs are and the difference between their siblings and what they need, and then to pull back and structure uh, the situation so they can reach each child differently. And you cannot do that as a group. You
Hmm.
can't do that with three children. You have to pull them separate and give each child their separate time so that you can communicate and talk clearly.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and the doctor that was talking about how amazing this time is for parents to be able to actually like educate and teach their own kid.
Right.
I mean, the parent is the primary educator in a child's life, and what a great
Absolutely.
opportunity for that to happen. This We could say that this period of time is is a pause. It's where we kind of feel stuck.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it's something that we really need to move through.
Exactly.
We need to process it. Go ahead.
Exactly. I was going to say, and really, we're not stuck. I mean, it feels that way, right? But we're really not stuck. We're sitting.
Yeah.
That's like we're in this for a reason, right? Um, and it's like, is it Ashlyn?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's like with getting tense and getting hyper or nervous, right? That's where you do your breathing so that you can sit with it. So this space that we're all in is about sitting with our doubts, our fears, um, our dreams, our broken dreams, everything that comes into play.
Yeah, I
And
love
it's
that idea.
movement. It's actually movement. When we're sitting, we're moving emotionally, internally.
Yeah, that's a really, I can really feel that.
Hmm.
um, I can feel that sitting place where you're really in the experience, and
Exactly.
you're
And
not moving away from it.
that's right.
You're moving into it.
Into it. Absolutely.
And it's not the doing that releases it, it's the sitting in it that lets it disentangle, sort of.
Exactly. It's accepting it. It's embracing it, right? It's like when we're stressed, when we're tight, when we're anxious, when we're overly excited, rather than to try to move away from it or to try to sit on it, quiet it down, right? Zip it up. If we embrace it, it talks to us.
Mm,
Because there's always a reason that we get hyper, that we get anxious, that we get overly excited, whatever it is. There's a reason for it. And what's happening, the reason that it seems so extreme is because we're not listening to the reason.
mm.
As soon as we hear it, it kind of dissipates.
Yeah, I really like that word you used, embrace. I think if there was something that children could say that they want,
Mm-hmm.
it's to feel the embrace of the parent,
Right.
right? Whether it's the house providing that stability and embrace, or whether it's the food embracing their body and nourishing it, or whether it's a hug that makes you feel like loved and cared for and embraced, or whether it's just a conversation that helps you embrace the stress or fear in your mind, to allow that to just sort of come back into balance.
Right.
And then I think parents are also having to embrace themselves and embrace the unknown. So maybe, Terri, you could talk to the parents a little bit that are on the call about what can they do to keep themselves in um, a supported state of mind, so that they can trust and process what they're going through.
Okay. Um, that's a very important question because, first of all, it's very difficult to communicate with your children if you're not clear with where you are. And it's very difficult to accept what your child is trying to share in terms of what they need if you're not in touch with your own needs. Because in a team structure, in a family structure, right, in a relationship structure, it's about working together. It's about knowing each other's needs. So I would say at that point, it's extremely important for the parents to take this time of sitting to get in touch with what they need as a parent, but not what they need from their child,
Mm,
but what they need from themselves. Do they need to feel more adequate as a parent? Do they need to feel safer as a parent? Do they need to be less judgmental about themselves? And then make a self note about those needs. And then look for a way to take care of those needs, to feel and feed those needs.
mm.
And they'll find that their communication then with their child will be so much smoother. Because also what a parent needs, a child needs.
Mm.
And I'm going to relate to your needs a lot easier if I know what my needs are because I'm going to, right? I
Yeah.
feel my own, I feel yours. That whole thing is I feel you.
Right.
Yeah, there's a reason for saying that. I relate to you. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. What I was kind of getting during that was how when parents for the first time have kids, that first, I don't know, maybe it never ends, but that first 6 to 9 months is kind of like, whoa. right?
Right,
And it's
right.
like, that's probably what people have been experiencing all over again, because this is a whole new
This is
situation.
a,
You know,
it's
how
a
do
whole
you,
new situation. And even without the situation, from parents, I hear so often, I don't feel like I'm being a good parent. I don't feel like I've done a good job. I don't feel like I'm doing enough. Yeah.
yeah,
So that communication is so important to us with ourselves as well.
yeah, and becoming comfortable with the whole process, you know. I know, like, I'm visiting my family today, and I can see that they've sort of started to work this out. You know, like
Yay.
they got a whole little rhythm. The kids get it. They know what the rules are.
Right.
Um, and there's a pattern developing. So we're probably, you know, far enough into this for parents to be kind of figuring it out.
Hmm.
um, and also probably far enough into it for it to then go to the next level in terms of, you know, how do you really help your kid, um, you know, continue to develop in the ways that they're able to develop outside of all of those social structures, you know. And it's not necessarily through more online learning or more video games. It might be through more dialogue, like what you're saying,
Hmm.
between parent and child, between brother and sister, you know, on a family walk, all those little things that build the fabric for development, you know, emotional
Absolutely.
development, mental development. A lot of times those are more important than intellectual development.
Absolutely. Extremely important because those are the foundation. Everything else is added to it. It's your building, the structure, but you've got to have that foundation. And again and again, as you know, it's all about communication. Um, it's the child, the student, the client, your partner, they all have the answer. You don't. And that's why you ask questions.
Mm,
But you've got to listen to know what questions to ask to help them get in touch with what's going on and for them to get in touch with their needs, which also helps them to build that structure because success is about self awareness.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. And so the more aware we are of how we function, what we need in order to function in balance, what we need in order to feel safe, once we have that and it's solid within us, then we can meet the world.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. That's making me think about, like, the whole conversation about critical thinking that's been kind of happening over the last few years with the rigorous testing that's been happening in the schools, is that kids have been educated to pass tests instead of being educated to think critically.
Mm.
And what an amazing opportunity to help kids begin to think critically. And like you said, you know, have that dialogue, become more self aware, start to process what their needs are, be able to communicate that. I know as a coach, you know, I sometimes struggle to really understand where a kid is coming from because they're not really able to process it, you know?
Right,
And then I'll have a conversation with a player and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, this, and this. So they've developed that skill.
right.
Yeah. So I hadn't really thought about this until we came to this conversation, but this is really cool that kids are going to learn that skill and parents are going to help to develop that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's getting those wheels turning. Start thinking because when we start thinking, we know it, right? It's like I will always tell a client, If I ask them a question, they go, I don't know. I go, yes, you do. As soon as I say that and give them a few minutes, they come up with an answer. It's like, oh, yeah, I do know.
Right, right.
Yeah. But it's because the first thing that we do right out the chute is we judge ourselves. What if it's the wrong answer? Well, that sounds stupid. Well, I don't think so, right? Rather than just acknowledging what we're getting, what we're hearing from ourselves. We don't
Yeah.
value our own abilities enough. The children do not value their own abilities enough. You don't give them that value by praising them. You
Yeah.
give them the value by teaching them to experience it and pull it out themselves from inward. Because when they do that, they feel it.
Mm.
I can tell you how wonderful you are over and over again. But if you are doubtful internally, it won't hold. I'll have to tell you 20 times a day forever. But if I start asking you questions to go in there and feel it, to experience it, no one will ever have to tell you again.
That's such a powerful idea that you're bringing to the table. And, you know, such a goal of mine is to really help families figure out how to create those mental and emotional strongholds that allow kids to peak perform.
Right.
And allow kids to fully express themselves, which is the same as peak performance. It's just maybe or maybe not on an athletic field. And actually being grounded in self-confidence is the key. And I think, you know, we have grown up, at least recently, in a culture that's very, you know, positive. I
Right.
love you. You're amazing. You're so beautiful, so cute. So, you know, but the kid inside is going like, you know, hey, I don't know if that's really true.
That's right.
And then that's where some of that mental stress and static and misunderstanding comes in. And, you know, ultimately that leads to fear and lack of action or dialogue.
And anxiety.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And then the other part of that is that whole thing about performing for yourself or for recognition. I think you and I have talked about that a little bit before.
Yeah.
Especially when we're in a family environment where everyone is extremely successful, right? Or great achievers or overachievers, whatever it may be. Well, what happens if we're not careful as a parent? That child or one of the children will have that personality that will take a look at that and become an achiever themselves, but it's coming from the wrong place.
Yeah.
It's coming from that place of wanting recognition from mom and dad or from society, whatever it may be. It's not coming from their heart and their desire. And so they have to learn to bring it back home and learn how to reach their goal so it fits their heart and their joy.
Yeah. I think that could be maybe described as conscious parenting.
Yes.
You know, that's one of my favorite phrases because I don't know, you can just feel the love in it, you know, that like you're really paying attention. And you know, I really try to be conscious as a coach. And I think that's why I understand parenting so much, even though I know there's a lot of things I don't understand. But, you know, I think that with that is the idea that, you know, parents can take time to develop that as a skill.
Right.
Because we are all developing the skill of becoming more self-aware, becoming more
Mm-hmm.
conscious. And so as we're doing that, right, we're then doing that for our kids.
Absolutely.
So it's a great place to start. And it, you know, it builds on itself.
Exactly. Exactly. And I've always said especially when you're in a family structure, whether it's 2 or 10. Where you are, I am. Where I am, you are. Doesn't matter the age difference. It's all the same subject. It's like it's all ice cream, but maybe yours is strawberry, mine's chocolate. But it's all ice cream, right? So we can all relate to fear. So talking about fear, I can relate to yours because I've had fear. You can relate to mine. And that's why being vulnerable when you're communicating is so important. But don't be afraid to be vulnerable with your children, because then you're giving them the opportunity to be wide open with you and to be vulnerable. And you're giving them a safe place to share and to talk. And children especially need that. They need that safe place. They need a place to share and to talk where they don't feel they're going to be judged or reprimanded. It's like I used to tell my kids when they were growing up, tell me whatever you need to tell me. I may not like it. I may not agree with it, but I'm going to listen and I'll be here for you. So to this day, they're wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so important.
Yeah. And, you know, I think the advent of social media and social networks that that kind of consumes the family has a big impact on how open we are and how demanding we are on our families, on our kids, to be able to fit into that social network as an achiever, as an A student, as the, you know, best setter in the country, or whatever it is. You know, we all want to share who we are, you know,
Right.
and we all want to share the best parts of who we are, but that's also not the whole story. And so I think if, you know, parents can realize, and coaches and everybody can realize that, you know, we just have a lot going on, and it's really being able to talk openly about that and not run away from it, but like you said earlier, sit in it.
Right.
Then we're going to be able to continue to elevate who we are, what we're doing, what our contribution is. And, you know, I think that's really exciting. And it's a big piece of what's happening right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the more that you sit, the more delicious it gets, because you realize, oh my God, that doesn't taste so bad. That's kind of yummy, actually. Yeah. And then you do eventually, you want more time to sit, because we're all self-absorbed at times. We like to know more about ourselves. We like to hear about ourselves, right? When you sit, you learn so much about yourself. And all of a sudden it becomes yummy, especially when you can do it without judging yourself.
Yeah, that's the miracle.
That's right.
The miracle. And when it's present, it is lovely. What's
Right.
up, Terri, buddy? You got a question or a comment?
I got a quick question for you, because I was thinking about one of the tough things I'm pretty sure you have to deal with too, is moving from motivation to discipline.
Have conversations with them as far as the outcome of not being disciplined, the outcome of inconsistency. Ask them what their goals are and what they feel is the best way of reaching that goal, and what type of discipline do they feel that will help them reach that goal. And if it doesn't fit you as a parent, then talk to them about compromising. How can you blend with their view? so that it speaks to them. Are you having a specific issue?
Torrance, if you can, just get a little closer to the computer so we can hear you a little better.
No, no, I'm not having a specific issue. I'm just thinking about that as I watch the girls practice and hearing some of the conversations they have and how you keep hearing about, well, I'm not motivated today, or I don't feel like I'm as motivated as I was last week. And it's like, it's not about being motivated. It's about how do you get better so you help the team get better. So at the end of the day, everybody's moving forward, be that next level.
Okay. Again, asking questions always helps, because sometimes a child or an adult will not be motivated that day because there's a level of depression. There's something else going on emotionally that's taken away from that motivation. So if they feel safe enough to be able to speak to that, that's when then you as the parent or you as the coach or whatever can assist them and help them move forward. Now, Dana, do you want to speak to that also?
Yeah,
You look like you were thinking.
Yeah, I was. I was putting myself in volleyball mode.
Right.
Yeah, Torrance, I think for me, in my experience, there's a couple different things that can happen with the energy. Most motivation is generated from an energetic pull or an energetic force. And so the energy is either getting split, it's focused on too many different things, or it's distracted, like she might be really excited about volleyball, but well, there's like this other thing that now I'm suddenly really excited about. So now volleyball isn't something I'm really excited about. So there seems like there's a real inconsistency or maybe an inauthenticity, but it's really just, there's either too much going on or there's a distraction. Or like Terri was saying, there's kind of a lowering of energy, or there's a depletion of energy. Like for example, you start running really fast and then you just crash and you start walking because you don't have the energy that's really required to keep going. And there's a lot of reasons that could be behind that. I think certainly, misunderstanding the goal and what it takes to get there, which is that, that consistent disciplined effort. It could be that they don't really want the goal, and so it doesn't sustain them the way that commitment sustains you. So I think there's a lot of different, elements that could be involved. And I think, like Terri said, having the discussion about it, kind of laying it out, talking about the steps to get there would really help. And then I think just making it fun. Like our energy gets drained when things aren't fun. And that's why we've tried to do so many different things with our platform, because we know that kids' attention span is not very long. We know that they can have fun doing all kinds of other things. And so we're trying to keep it really short and sweet. But at the same time, we also know that to be good at volleyball, you have to spend a lot of time doing it. And you have to do it with a certain level of intention and attention. And so, maybe sitting down with Tabitha and having a conversation with her about these kinds of things might just help her kind of think about things a little differently, and help her to prioritize. You could kind of draw a map of all of her interests, and then you could put a percentage of energy she's putting towards each of those. And you might be surprised. She might be surprised. Maybe she's putting 60% of her interest on watching movies or texting on her phone. And if she just took 20% of that 60, she could be way more successful over here. I really just don't think kids are aware of where their energy's at. I don't think they're aware of how many things are pulling at their energy. And I don't think that we've trained them well enough as a society to focus their attention. And so, I mean, like I was saying earlier, what a great opportunity for you to educate her on that and be able to go through that maybe difficult process with her, because you're your parent, you're more invested, and you can have those hard conversations. So I think that was kind of a long answer.
Thank you. It's a very good answer.
Yeah, I actually want to add something now. You're making me think more. And that is that, you know, for me, I always feel like I'm more invested in my goals when I understand them better and I have more information on how to achieve them. Right. So like I've actually taken on a lot of new challenges in my life the last year. For example, I started learning how to like juice and eat way better. And I didn't just like go to the store and buy a bunch of stuff and try to make it, you know, like I actually took a nutrition class for 90 days and learn something new each day and each week to be able to implement over time. And so I really set myself up for success to improve my health and wellness by educating myself, by bringing new information, by understanding the goal at a little bit better level. And so, you know, I think sometimes kids are either told that they should have a goal or they decide that they should have a goal. They just really have no idea what that means. You know, like they read it on Instagram or something. So, you know, maybe take Tabitha through some videos, take her through, you know, a course and help her, give her more information, and that might motivate her. So Terri, do you have anything to add to that?
The only thing I have to add to that is that also I think that each of us, adults and children, we need to find our own pace. We need to find develop an awareness of our energy and how it flows, and be aware of when we hit that wall and be able to stop before we hit the wall. Because once we hit that wall, we don't want to go back to it. It takes us a lot longer to go back, and children very much so. So a lot of times that's when that you will see a student or a child be very active, and then all of a sudden they're not.
I see. I can see that she likes, you know, she likes the idea when she likes, you know, if she's doing well, she loves it, and when she's not, she kind of struggles. But I don't want. I really want it to be something that she finds out in herself, not for other people as much.
Yeah. With you know, with Tabitha, because I know her quite well, and I feel like I understand her personality really well. Like she's a really fiery player, and she's somebody that can like really motivate the team. And then I also see there's times where she gets frustrated and doesn't know how to fix the problem that maybe the team is facing to be able to get over that next hump. So it was like, as Terri was talking about coming against the wall, I could see a little bit where Tabitha might come up against like an energy wall because she spends so much energy when she plays like on fire, you know, or she'll come up against a wall when like all that fiery energy that she has isn't enough to get the team to go to the next level. And so then that wall makes her feel like, okay, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Like I'm doing everything I can and I can't do anymore. So I'm done with it, you know? So I wish somebody had told me that like I didn't have to burn so hot all the time, and that I didn't have to push beyond my limits and kind of almost harm myself and harm my own spirit to try to like break through impossible boundaries. You know, I just needed to, like Terri said, kind of chill out and go at my own pace. So I didn't break the car, you know?
Yeah, and that's beautiful because most people who are successful have that energy, that drive. So yeah, to learn to hone that in and to keep it so it's an even flow, that's an art, and that takes time to learn that. So it takes the ability to be aware of how you're feeling, to watch yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, like just speaking from experience, like I get so into that emotion of like, woo, let's go.
Right.
That like I want to use it all up.
Absolutely.
It feels so good, you know. And then you're like, it's gone. So yeah, I think we're all learning the same lessons, Torrance, like how to stay motivated and, you know, be disciplined without overdoing it and taking it too seriously. Thanks you guys for joining us tonight. You know, just to kind of summarize, I really like Terry's word she used tonight of embrace. What an awesome opportunity to embrace the situation, to embrace ourselves and our own self-awareness and our development, and then embrace our kids mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you know, and physically as they grow up and take flight into new territory. So have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you guys.
Thank you.
Ciao, bye.